Welcome to Mt Shasta Escape. In this video, I'm going to introduce the new Suzuki GSX-8S that I bought on May 2nd. I bought this bike at Chico Motorsports in Chico, California, the same place where I bought my KLX 300. I've been looking at a variety of motorcycles, originally adventure bikes, and then I expanded out to look at street bikes too. And the first street bike that I looked at that actually made me seriously think about lower seat heights was the Kawasaki Z650. I had just about decided this was the motorcycle I was going to buy from Lee's, the dealership in Reading, and it wasn't until that I went to Chico and looked at and sat on the GSX-8S that I suddenly decided, hey, I guess this is the bike I really want to get. So in a minute or so, I'm going to show you a video that I've taken riding the new motorcycle out past the Craig's Crest State Park. But in the meanwhile, here it is in the truck as I'm bringing it home. And then I'm sorry to say that I got that first tip over out of the way in my garage. I was working on the bike, looking for a place to hook in accessory power. I had it on the side stand. And apparently I must have just rocked it forward slightly because it fell over. And now I'm finding it's rather hard to lift up. Fortunately, I have an eastbound motor winch, which I'm going to use to lift this turkey up. So I broke the clutch lever. That was about the extent of the damage. And now let's get on to the more fun stuff, and I'm going to ride the bike. And I'll talk some more about it during the ride. But I like having the gas gauge on there. And right now I'm showing 76 miles empty and instantaneous MPGs and so forth. And it's got 2 trip counters, so it shows what your MPG is for that. Now what I've seen so far, it seems like it tends to get a little better mileage than what it reports. And the range is a little bit longer than what it reports, but I'm still in early days figuring all this out. Now this is the fun part of the ride. I like this twisty little, I know for the last, I don't know, not quite a year, I've been every now and then talking on some of my videos about how, yeah, I want to get kind of a street-oriented bike, but I'm thinking an adventure bike because I still like to do some dirt. And over the last year, I've been going to motorcycle dealers and sitting on bikes and watching video reviews and reading reviews, everything I can about every kind of bike out there. And something that kind of started bugging me a little bit was just about all of the adventure bikes felt a little bit top heavy and tall to me. And then I got to thinking, well, okay, you know, like the Triumph Tiger, it comes with the 21-inch front wheel versions, and it's also got 19-inch front wheel versions. And I thought, well, maybe the 19-inch front wheel versions. And I sat on them, and they felt better, but they still felt a little top heavy, and they're still like over 500 pounds. I think their seat height is like 32.5 inches, supposedly, but they still just felt kind of tall. And I've only owned one adventure bike. The one adventure bike I owned was I think it was a 2012 Triumph Tiger 800 XC. Took a lot of trips with that with my wife on back. But as it turned out, we just really never did much in the way of dirt roads. Did a little bit, but not much. But I was still thinking, you know, I kind of like dirt roads. But then I thought more about it, and I got to thinking, you know, I've got the KLX, I'm not selling it, I'm keeping it. And I still love riding that on all the forest roads. And maybe I need to kind of go back a little bit, turn the clock back, and get a street bike. Because I can get something with a lower seat, maybe a little bit lighter weight. So then, anyway, I finally came back, you know, I should at least look at street bikes and just kind of open it up to whatever looks like it'll be fun on the street. And if it happens to be something that's good on the dirt, fine, but don't rule out the street bikes. And so I started reading about them and checking them out, sitting on some. And I think a bike that really opened my eyes to how much I enjoyed a lighter weight bike with a low seat height was sitting on a Kawasaki Z650. Now, I suppose it has a 31.1-inch seat height. But I could sit on that thing, I could flat-foot it, it weighs just slightly over 400 pounds. And for a while I thought, maybe that's what I'm going to get. But I still had other bikes that I wanted to look at. You know, the KTM 790, 890 adventure bikes? If you don't get the Adventure R's or something, if you get the ones that are a little bit lower, they actually have a reasonable seat height, but I just didn't like the whole issue of the reliability of a KTM. And the dealer I looked at that had the Z750s was, or the Z650s, was a Honda, Kawasaki, and a few other kind of things that they sell that was in Reading. I think it was Lee's Honda, yada yada, all the other stuff they have. Nice dealership. I liked the people there. I liked the looks of the Yamaha. I think it's the XSR 900 triple. The bike's high horsepower. The XSR 900 puts out like 117 horsepower. The seat height sounded like it wasn't all that high. I mean, it was, I think, around 32 inches. And I saw that they had one at a motorcycle dealer in Chico, California. And that's actually where I bought my KLX. I kind of liked them. Kind of old school place. So I decided, I need to go over there and look at what they have. And I also noticed at the time they had the Suzuki GSX-8S. And it's, you read about it, it says it's got a 31.9 inch seat height. And I know that Z650 with its 31.1 was really awesome. And I thought, well, I probably won't like the seat being a little higher, but I got to check a look at that one too. And then they had another bike, which I never really thought seriously about, except that it was a held over 2023. And they had that sucker discount of $1,500, which meant that I could get it for almost the same as what that Z650 would have cost. 117 horsepower, 3-cylinder triple. I still remember riding high horsepower bikes and it sounded like fun to me. Anyway, those are two to look at, and I could look at the GSX. And they did have one of the retro Kawasaki 650s there too, which I could look at. So I sat on the two Yamahas, and the MT-09 was a 32.5 inch. That just felt top heavy and tippy. And I know it's a lightweight bike. I mean, it weighs a little over 400 pounds, the same as I think the XSR 900 weighs a little over 400 pounds lighter than the bike that I got. And I almost didn't do it, but see, I need to at least sit on that Suzuki GSX-8S. So I walked over and I sat on that thing, and although the seat height is supposed to be 31.9 inches and the Z650 is 31.1, I flat-footed that thing just as well as I did the Z650. And I, kind of tip it back and forth a little bit, and it didn't feel top-heavy at all. And I'd read reviews on it. It gets good reviews. It just, for some reason, just wasn't something I really thought that I would go for. But boy, I sat on the bike and it just felt right to me. And again, if I was going to go for a Z650 style bike, well, gee, this weighs more than a Z650. I think the wet weight is 445 pounds. The Z650 is like about 410 or something like that. But it felt just as light. It carries its weight low. And honestly, on a street bike, a little bit of extra weight at times is not a bad thing when you're in a wind or something, although to really make a difference in a wind, you need to be on your Gold Wing or your Harley Ultra Classic. But oh well. Anyway, I sat on it and it just really struck me right. And I wandered around, looked at their motorcycles for quite a while, and I just finally walked over to the Wayne. I think his name's Wayne Craig. Anyway, and I'm not sure. I kind of have the feeling he's the owner. But he's the guy I talked about the KLX 300 to, and I just finally looked at him and said, I want to buy a motorcycle. And he said, which one? I told him, and he knocked some off the price. And I wound up buying a Suzuki GSX-8S. And I have got, let's see how many miles on it. See if I can flip this down to it. 555 miles on it. I'm just almost at my first oil change. By the time I get home after this, I think I might be there. Anyway, made the deal and wrote him a personal check, and that's what I did with the KLX. And I said, really, you'll take a personal check? I mean, I didn't know what he would want, but I mean, I'd do a cashier's check or a wire transfer or you name it. Nope, just personal check. And I really was not optimistic that I was going to buy a motorcycle from him, because I really had my eye on that Z650 in Reading. By the way, that's only an hour drive. It would have been a lot nicer in that regard. I might add, there is a Suzuki dealer in Reading, Faders. I don't know how you pronounce that, F-A-T-O-R-S. And I went over and I looked at their stuff too. They didn't have this GSX-8S there, so I couldn't look at one there, but I really like the people there too. The motorcycle dealers in Reading seemed good to me. But at any rate, that's kind of the thought process I went through, and I've just been having a blast on this thing for the last 555 miles or so. Seat's comfortable. When I ride street bikes, I've always done this. I'll either put on a pair of padded bike shorts, or in this case, I'm wearing some abrasion-resistant motorcycle pants that have knee pads in them, but they don't have hip pads, and so I'm wearing a pair of hip pads that actually has kind of extra padding on the bottom of them too, which makes the seat a little more comfortable. This bike just does amazingly well on dirt roads. You know, my concern is hitting anything sharp-edged with it because of the cast wheels and lack of ground clearance, which on the roads I've been on have not been an issue. And a little bigger issue, you know, I'm not really worried about the cast wheels. You know, I think I'm pretty good about dodging something that would break a wheel. But what would worry me a little bit about going fast on dirt roads anyway is that there's always a chance you'll kick up a rock with that front tire, which will smash into the exhaust system or engine casings or something, break something. And this has no protection down there. And I've seen there at least one place that sells a skid plate for this bike, and it is hugely protective, it looks like, but it is so darn ugly. But I'm not at all scared of riding this thing on dirt roads, and that's even with street tires that just, you know, don't try to climb anything steep or lots of loose rock on it. Leave that for the KLX. I mean, there are little state highways and county roads that are paved around here that I've stayed away from on the KLX just because there's too much faster highway riding involved, and that just is not what I want to do on the KLX. I don't know what the limits are yet. I've just done a few dirt roads with it, but each time I've done it, I've kind of shook my head and go, I can't believe how good this is. You're not going to be able to go fast and hit things hard like you would with a dual sport or a real dirt bike. But that's not the point. I would just kind of be tootling along slow and enjoying the scenery. And I think this bike could be very, very good at that. Getting into snow here. I'm at 5,300. Oh, potholes. If I don't hit them too hard, I'm all right. But, what, 5,379? And I'm getting close to that pass up here. I doubt it was more than a week ago, maybe a little over, but I came up here on this motorcycle, and I was snowed out before I got to the pass. This is the top of the pass, and not real far up here. The road kind of splits, and one to the right kind of heads up, and the one to the left heads down. And okay, there it says pavement ends, and I'm going to go to the right, and I don't know that the pavement ends this way. It says Forest Road 26. I've never owned a bike with traction control, ABS, power modes, all that stuff. First time I ever owned one like that. It's not totally state-of-the-art because the traction control doesn't use an IMU. It's not lean-sensitive traction control and ABS. But still, I've never had anything with any of that stuff before, so it's all new and good to me. I think this is going to go up high enough that I'll get snowed out. Which means a turnaround could be coming up here. That's my turnaround point. And yeah, somebody went through there. And I'm constantly amazed how much easier it is to back up this motorcycle because I can get my feet down and to do it on pavement. So I'm just going to stop the bike right here. But first, a quick walk around with this. You notice on the side here, I have some guards, which don't know how well this shows, by SW Motec. And as after I dropped it in the garage, I said, you know what, let's try to put a little protection on here. First, I got my Garmin Zumo XT, which I'm using on my KLX also. I got my tire pressure monitoring system. I got a little mod that I've used on motorcycles in the past called the Cramp Buster. Don't have cruise control on this, but if you're going long distance, and I've done a lot of 400 or 500 mile rides on motorcycles with the Cramp Buster, it can really make you feel a little better. Now on the front here, these are some motocross bike handguards. I do have on order an MRA windscreen. It was out of stock. The place I got it from had to order it from Germany and then send it to me, and it's supposedly going to be here Wednesday. I was hoping I would have had it a week and a half ago, but at any rate, I very much would like to have a little bit of wind protection on. And I guess the other part is that I bought these Suzuki branded soft side bags. They're attached to a metal guard right there, keeps them out of the wheels. Went very hard to put on. I have ordered for this bike a handlebar bag, which should fit kind of here to here. Beyond that, all the specs on the bike, I'm not going to go through that. There are so many reviews on this motorcycle that you can find online, people talking about it. Generally pretty positive. If there's any complaint people have, it's the really go-fast crowd, but they say it doesn't have enough ground clearance because you lean her over and you start scraping that feeler on the peg too early, and so you can't go around the corner as fast as you want. And I don't know if it would have ever mattered to me, but I think for any normal person, this bike is going to corner extraordinarily well, and everybody that reviews it says that. It's just that it's not until they get on a racetrack. I guess something that I wanted to do was show what it looks like when I sit on this bike. So I got about a 29-inch inseam. I didn't really talk about it when I was coming up, but if you look down at the dash, maybe you can see it there. Turn it down a little bit. I'm in traction control 3, and their power mode, SDMS, whatever that stands for, is C. So it's the most mellow. You know, you still have full power, but you got to twist the throttle further to get it, and it just kind of smooths everything out. I like that. They say it's like for beginners or rain mode or something. Now, I think most people put it in that SDMS mode B and traction control 2. And I've done that too, and that's okay. The throttle's just a little twitchier, but I mean, for a road like this, it would be fine. And then there's drive mode A, traction control 1, or you could turn the traction control off entirely. And in A, I just did a little bit. My first thought was, you could do power wheelies in this. And if you're into the power wheelie thing, I'd strongly recommend that you just turn your traction control off completely. Because if you do a power wheelie, at some point your front wheel won't be spinning at the same rate as your back wheel, and it could cut power. I don't know if I'll ever even try to do a wheelie on this. But a lot of people prefer drive mode A. I think even more people prefer B, and most people would never admit that they use C. And there you have it. Oh, the other thing is that you can supposedly change those mode while you're riding. Little mode button on the left handlebar here. If I push it, that 3 starts blinking, and if I push the up button, it goes to 2. Push the mode button again, it goes to C, and I'll push the up button, it goes to B, and push it again, and I've just changed it while I'm riding. Bad part about that is, though, sometimes I can do it, and other times it doesn't change. I think there's a software bug or something in it, but at any rate, you can always change it if you come to a complete stop. But to change it on the fly while you're riding, not necessarily. But the thing is, I'm pretty happy in any one of the modes, so whatever mode I've got it in, if I can't change it, it's kind of like, so what? And now, coming down is when we get the best views. Mountains up there, gorgeous. And by the way, I put it into B, and just a little bit of throttle twist, I can really feel that extra oomph. And I could get the same thing in C, but I'm going to have to twist the throttle probably twice as far to get the same effect. Then you put it in A, and it's, oh my, you know, you just light little inputs on the throttle, and away you go. Just depends on what you're looking for. And I think it's all fun. I've enjoyed experimenting with it. All 3 modes, A, B, and C, feel very different from the other, and they all seem very useful to me. That's one of the things that made me lean towards this rather than that Kawasaki Z650. I really like the look of it too. I like the seat height, it was good. It was a little bit lighter than this bike. I mean, that's always okay. But it didn't have throttle by wire. It was the standard old style push-pull throttle, and so I couldn't put those drive modes into it. Also, I'm kind of hoping someday I might add cruise control to this. So when you got throttle by wire, it's not that big a deal to put one in, which everybody gets mad at the manufacturers for not doing it, myself included. But there's two companies, one in Australia, one in Canada. MC Cruise in Australia, and I think it's Viridian Cruise in Canada. And I've contacted both of them. They're both thinking about maybe making one for this, but it's not the top of their list. And I think they both have done it for the Suzuki V-Stroms, the 800s. It's the same motor, pretty much the same electronics, but unless either one of those companies can actually have somebody loan them a GSX-8S, they said they would need it for about 2 weeks to go through their testing and make sure it worked okay. But until somebody can loan them one, they get their hands on one of the bikes to experiment with, they can't sell one for them. It's on a motocross track, practicing on a dirt bike, non-street legal, just a full-on dirt bike. I was on a KTM 380XE, that's a two-stroke, made 50 horsepower. Over-jumped a double, which could be a triple too if you really hammer it, but over-jumped the double. I landed in the flat, front wheel high, came down hard, whiskey throttled it, which just slammed me into the next part of what could have been a triple, and launched me up in the air, and I did one of those ragdoll things, and when it was all over, I broke my top 3 ribs. I've broken, I think, 8 ribs over the years, all on motorcycle, dirt bike accidents. Most I ever broke at one time though was then, and it was the top 3, and the emergency room doctor told me that I've never seen anybody break the top 3 ribs before without also breaking their neck. And I was just kind of going, okay, I'm glad I didn't break my neck. I had a second-degree shoulder separation. I did that on a mountain bike mishap. I rode those pretty darn aggressively also, but I went in, they x-rayed it. And instead of saying anything about my shoulder initially, the guy comes back in, he says, "You've broken lots of ribs." I said, "Well, yeah, I know that, but let's talk about my shoulder." It's been a long time since I rode motorcycles with anybody else, whether it's on the dirt or whether it's on the street. That's where I just don't know. With those old competitive juices fire up again, it's better if they don't. And that is not what I need now. With bad joints and slowed down reflexes and eyesight that's okay, but I mean, it's not like it used to be. And I also know that on a GoPro coming down this road, it'll still look like I'm going pretty fast. It says I'm doing 35. I guess the GPS says 31 or 2, but GoPro always exaggerates stuff. Makes it look like your hair on fire, really going fast. Though anybody that thinks that about me from watching any of my other videos, it just ain't so. I'm not. And he probably didn't think that anyway. He probably just laughed. Old slow guy.